Coming up on this Friday edition of Daybreak, President Park Geun Hye champions deregulation as the best way to spur the local economy and create jobs. The president says red tape is the cancer killing Korea's economy. An international air search in the southern Indian Ocean for possible debris from the missing Malaysia Airlines plane will resume once day breaks. This after Australian authorities identified two large objects possibly related to the missing aircraft. Plus, Russia's lower house approves a treaty to annex Crimea from Ukraine. US President Barack Obama raises the diplomatic stakes by announcing further sanctions on Russian individuals close to Vladimir Putin. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers here in Korea and around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Friday, March 21st here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you are watching Daybreak. Our top story this morning is President Park Geun Hye's aggressive campaign to strip back on excessive regulations. In a rare, live, televised debate Thursday, the president said cutting down on red tape is the best way to boost Korea's economy and create jobs. Our presidential office correspondent Choi Yusun reports.
저는 규제 개혁이야말로 경제 혁신과 대도약에 있어 돈 들이지 않고도 할 수 있는 유일한 핵심 열쇠이자 각계각층의 경제 주체들이 자유롭게 도전할 수 있는 환경을 조성하고 용기를 북돋울 수 있는 기반이라고 생각하고 있습니다.
At a special televised debate on deregulation Thursday, President Park highlighted how sweeping regulatory reforms would encourage businesses to innovate and actively invest, ultimately leading to job creation. As an example of unnecessary red tape, the president talked about how overseas fans of Korean dramas are not able to purchase the products they see on their screens. That's because they don't have the electronic identification certification required for online transactions in Korea. The president then called for government employees to be more proactive in regulatory reforms, proposing an evaluation system where they would be rewarded for their deregulation initiatives. She also asked for a balance between easing unnecessary regulations and boosting ones that are required in the areas of welfare, the environment, and personal information protection. Some 60 business representatives from conglomerates to small and mid-sized firms also voiced their opinions. They said a regulation is often controlled by more than one ministry, which hampers new business projects that could revitalize the economy. The business leaders said there should be a system in place where ministries communicate more effectively. Also on Thursday, the government pledged to cut the volume of registered regulations to 80% of the current level by 2016. And next year, the government will adopt Britain's control system, which automatically eliminates existing regulations when new ones are introduced to ensure there's no extra cost to the public and businesses. Choi Yusun, Arirang News.
The presidents of South Korea and China will hold bilateral talks on the sidelines of the Nuclear Security Summit in The Hague next week. Beijing's foreign ministry spokesperson said Thursday that Chinese President Xi Jinping will sit down with his Korean counterpart, Park Geun Hye, and will also hold other one-on-ones with the leaders of the US, Kazakhstan, Finland and Britain. It will be the third bilateral summit between Presidents Park and Xi since last June. Despite North Korea's recent launches of short-range missiles and ongoing work at its nuclear missile sites, there appears to be no imminent threat. This, according to 38 North, the website run by the US-Korea Institute at Johns Hopkins University. It said Thursday there are no signs of impending tests, but warned Pyongyang is increasing its ability to conduct future tests as construction activities were observed at 3 facilities, including at the Punggye-ri nuclear test site. North Korea has launched a series of short-range missiles over the last few weeks, sparking fears of a possible nuclear test as missile launches have preceded nuclear tests in the past. North Korea and Japan have agreed to restart official government-level talks. An official from Japan's foreign ministry said Thursday that the two governments had come to an agreement on holding formal bilateral meetings, but not much else. The decision came after a two-day informal meeting between Red Cross and government officials from both countries wrapped up in northeastern China. Pundits say the next round of talks will likely centre on repatriating the remains of Japanese nationals who died in what is now North Korea during World War II. They'll be the first government-level discussions between North Korea and Japan since 2012, when talks were scrapped after Pyongyang launched a long-range rocket. South Korea's finance ministry says the US Federal Reserve's decision to reduce its monthly bond purchases will not have a big impact on the Korean economy. Ministry officials said Thursday that they would continue to monitor the markets closely in the event of temporary volatility from the announcement, especially with sluggish growth in China and the ongoing crisis in Crimea. The Fed decided Wednesday local time to cut its monthly bond purchasing program from 65 to 55 billion US dollars from April. The benchmark Kospi here in South Korea fell nearly 1% on Thursday to close out at 1,919.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, the world's most advanced survey ships and observation planes will once again converge on a location in the remote south of the Indian Ocean today after possible debris from the missing Malaysia Airlines plane was found. Darkness halted search efforts Thursday after authorities in Australia said they'd seen two large objects in the ocean. Connie Lee reports.
Poor weather conditions of rain and clouds hampered the search of possible debris of the missing Malaysian Flight 370. Search crews, including one Australian military plane, reported back with no new findings.
Unfortunately, with the weather conditions as you experienced on the flight, we're unable to locate any wreckage or debris.
The massive search operation went underway late Thursday after Australian authorities announced that two objects spotted in the Indian Ocean could be related to the missing airliner. According to satellite images, the objects were found about 2,300 kilometers away from Australia's city of Perth.
And we must keep this in mind. The task of locating these objects will be extremely difficult, and it may turn out that they are not related to the search for Flight MH370.
Still, officials in Malaysia are being hopeful.
Every lead is a hope, and we have been very consistent. We want to verify, we want to corroborate. We're in the process of verifying and corroborating the information.
But families of the Chinese passengers who were on that plane are losing their patience. As some of them wait for answers at a hotel in Beijing, their anger is growing, especially toward the Malaysian government.
I'm telling you, from 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock, you all knew where that plane was. Now you also know where it is. You're cheating us family members.
The Malaysian flight with 239 people on board was headed to Beijing from Malaysia when it disappeared on March 8th. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Turning now to the latest on the Ukraine crisis. Russia's lower house of parliament has overwhelmingly approved a treaty to annex Crimea from Ukraine, with just one deputy voting against. The upper house is expected to complete ratification on Friday, and President Vladimir Putin and Crimean leaders will ink it early next week. The annexation treaty stipulates that Crimea will be fully integrated into Russia after a transition period ending on January 1st. Also Thursday, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon met with President Putin at the Kremlin, urging for a peaceful settlement to the crisis. The UN chief travels to Kiev on Friday to deliver the same message.
They should really resolve this issue peacefully, the first and foremost, the most important way is for Russia and Ukraine sit down together and engage in direct and constructive dialogue.
Now, this all comes as US President Barack Obama expanded sanctions to take in a Russian bank and some high-profile Russian billionaires with close ties to Putin. Russia also announced travel bans against 9 prominent Americans, including Senators Harry Reid and John McCain. EU leaders are looking into further sanctions on Moscow during a 2-day European Union summit in Brussels that ends on this Friday. Now, back here in Korea, and the country's 3 mobile carriers have promised to stop providing customers with illegal subsidies. This comes after they were hit with tens of millions of dollars in fines on top of a minimum 45-day business suspension. Now, Na Hyung-kyung reports.
The first thing the nation's 3 mobile carriers promised was to root out the practice of offering subsidies to lure customers once and for all. At a joint press conference Thursday, SK Telecom, KT, and LG U+ vowed to shift their sales paradigm from one oriented around illegal subsidies to one that's service-oriented. To do that, they will work with the country's handset makers, including Samsung and LG Electronics, to lower the factory price of cell phones so that retailers will not feel the need to give subsidies to their customers, thereby igniting an unfair competition in the market. The 3 carriers also plan to launch a market monitoring team run by the 3 firms, and they will temporarily sever the network of retailers that violate regulations. Thursday's announcement comes after the 3 were put under a minimum 45-day business suspension by the ICT Ministry and the Korea Communications Commission earlier this month. The penalty was their punishment for attempting to entice customers with subsidies. This is a customary tactic in Korea's mobile telecommunications market, where mobile carriers pay a huge chunk of what a customer is supposed to pay for a mobile device. Despite the telecom companies' will to offer better services and stabilize the market, skeptics say their plan as of now is too vague and that the 3 are shifting responsibility to the retailers rather than fixing the problem at the source. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
Now, Korea is often regarded as the world's leading IT powerhouse, and it wants to keep it that way. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said Thursday that it plans to invest roughly $190 million into the semiconductor and display sectors this year. That is up 4% from last year. 30% of that total will be used to support small and mid-sized companies in the sector. A nationwide doctor strike initially planned for next week won't take place after all. The Korean Medical Association said Thursday it was calling off the plan and accepting a tentative agreement reached with the government on contentious medical policies. The announcement followed a poll of 41,000 KMA doctors, in which 62% voted to accept this deal. It includes a plan to carry out a trial run of a controversial telemedicine system and allow hospitals to build for-profit subsidiaries. The planned 6-day strike was to start next Monday, and there was a 1-day doctor strike earlier this month. Now, if you take a peek into classrooms around the world, you will see that the popularity of the Korean language is spreading fast. In fact, tens of thousands of students overseas are now opting to learn Korean as their second language. Our Kim Hyun-bin tells us what's behind the Korean language boom.
The Ministry of Education has been taking the initiative to spread the Korean language around the globe, and it launched a 5-year plan to promote it in 2011. The goal was to enhance Korea's global status. For the Korean government, it was also a chance to find overseas talent. As a result, tens of thousands of elementary to middle school students in 24 countries are choosing Korean as their second language. What triggered the boom?
The Korean wave played a big part in the fact Korea became well off. Students watch Korean dramas and listen to K-pop, and they want to speak Korean. The point is, Korea's dynamic culture has influenced young people abroad.
By the end of 2011, there were a total of 695 Korean language classes in elementary and middle schools in 22 countries. By the end of 2013, that number jumped to 882 classes in 24 countries. In Asia alone, Over 41,000 students and 476 schools were offering Korean in their curriculum. Classes were open in England, Bulgaria, and other countries for the first time in late 2013. So is the booming interest in the Korean language here to stay.
As we provide the Korean language, we need to make an effort to learn their culture, and the Korean wave will continue to be successful, and more foreigners will show their love and appreciation for it.
The Ministry of Education says it is working to expand the Korean language program to 1,000 classes in 28 countries by the end of this year. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, for a look at some of the other international headlines we're following at this early hour, we're going to connect to our Eunice Kim, who's standing by at the news center. Eunice.
Good morning, Mark. Yeah, that's right. We'll begin in Kabul, Afghanistan now, where 4 gunmen entered a luxury hotel and opened fire, setting up a standoff with police. Officials say the situation has now been contained as 3 of the gunmen were killed and the 4th captured. No bystanders are reported to be hurt. The Serena is considered one of the safest hotels in the capital city. The Associated Press reports the gunmen hid pistols in their socks to get through security. No one has immediately claimed responsibility for the attack, though Taliban militants have threatened to carry out attacks ahead of next month's presidential elections. Meanwhile, at least 11 were killed and 22 injured in an armed clash at a nearby police station on the same day. A Mumbai court has convicted 4 men for gang raping a photojournalist last year. They were also found guilty of 9 other charges, including criminal conspiracy, intimidation, and destroying evidence. The then 22-year-old woman and a male colleague were on assignment when they were approached by the men, taken to an abandoned mill, and attacked. The case had renewed public outrage over sexual violence in India, and the Maharashtra State Home Minister declared that justice had been done in this case quickly. Sentencing is expected on this Friday, and the men could face 20 years to life in prison. U.S. First Lady Michelle Obama arrived in Beijing with her 2 daughters Thursday night, the start of a week-long trip during which she will meet with her Chinese counterpart and promote education and cultural ties. Also on her itinerary are visits to the western historic city of Xi'an and the southern city of Chengdu. The Chinese Foreign Ministry characterized the trip as one that will play an important role in increasing mutual understanding and expand friendship. China's Xinhua news agency called the trip especially meaningful given the tense relations between China and the U.S. Fortune magazine has named Pope Francis at the top of its first World's Greatest Leaders list. The honor comes months after the pontiff was named Person of the Year by Time magazine in December. Fortune said Pope Francis has set a striking new tone through his personal example of modesty and inclusiveness, citing his refusal to live in the palatial apartments for the pontiff, opting to drive a Ford Focus, and washing the feet of a female Muslim prisoner. It also says he's put to action changes in the Catholic Church, creating an advisory group on reform. And others on the list was singer Bono, former U.S. President Bill Clinton, and president of Harvey Mudd College, Maria Klaw.
And TGI Friday, everyone, as we head over to Australia, where the LA Dodgers play the Australian national team before their season opener against the Arizona Diamondbacks this weekend. With the opening day stars taking a rest, the LA Dodgers struggled against the Australian national team as the Australian pitchers dominated the Dodgers lineup. And this including former Hanwha Eagles pitcher Koo Dae-sung, who came in relief in the 7th inning for Team Australia as Lee Hyun-jin had a chance to watch his mentor on the mound once again. But thanks to Yaseo Puig's 2-run shot in the 8th inning, the Dodgers rallied late to win this game 4-2. And over to the decisive Game 5 of the first-round playoff series in the KBO between the KT Sonic Boom and the Incheon Itilan Elephants. Of course, going into the game here, the KT Sonic Boom take an early lead with a 20-16 lead in the first quarter before heading to halftime with a big 39-22 lead. Third quarter, Incheon continues to struggle from the field, scoring just 5 points, while Juan Patillo is just absolutely lights out, finishing off with 22 points and 8 rebounds as KT advances to the semifinals with a 79-57 win. And shifting over to the Women's V-League, where the GS Caltex took on Daejeon KGC in Game 1 of the playoffs. Now, both teams winning 3 games each in the regular season look to be an evenly matched series, but last night, GS Caltex dominates Daejeon KGC, and all thanks to the return of Bethania de la Cruz de Peña, who puts up 34 points on the night as GS Caltex takes Game 1 in straight sets, 25-22, 26-24, and 25-20 for a 3-0 win. And staying in the V-League, while the Women's League had their first playoff game last night, the Men's League kick off their playoffs later tonight. With the second-place Hyundai Capital Skywalkers and the third-place Korean Air Jumbo set to square off later tonight, Hyundai Capital's Liberman Algomez looked pretty confident, stating that he'll stop Michael Sanchez in this series and stop Leo Martinez in the finals. And while his confidence is there, experts believe that the Samsung Hwanja Blue Fangs are the clear favorites to claim their 7th straight championship this season. And over to football, and a bit of an entertainment and sports news put into one, as a member of one of the more popular idol groups in Korea was named the honorary ambassador of K-League on Thursday. Now, Yoon Do-jun, a member of the popular boy group Beast, was named the honorary ambassador of K-League as he hopes to spread the popularity of K-League throughout the world. The idol star, who also plays for a celebrity football team in Korea, becomes the first celebrity to be given the honors, as he was issued a press to all the K-League matches this season. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great weekend, everyone, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Well, it was so windy yesterday, and wind chill should continue this morning, which should add a chill to the chilly morning low. So please bundle up on your morning commute. And it looks like the top temperature will remain similar to a tad lower compared to yesterday. But the good news is the sunshine will finally return today. We are looking at a few morning clouds, but they will give way to sun as we go through the day. So we have a bright Friday ahead, and it should be a good day to soak up some vitamin D from the sun this afternoon. And now to say it should be the last day of somewhat chilly day of the season. We'll enter the days of warmer weather and lots of sun starting tomorrow. So let's look forward to that. And here are the readings for today. The morning low in Seoul is starting out at 1. Now that's 5 degrees lower than yesterday, but daily highs will rise to 12, and Daegu and Gwangju should top out at 14 and 11 respectively, while Busan should get up to 13 later in the day. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like down on Jeju will climb up to 11, Daejeon will peak to 12, while the top temperature on Mount Keungang will be at 2 this afternoon. Well, please be sure to dress warmly and hope you have a wonderful Friday.
Well, thank you very much, Jeon. And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about 30 minutes' time, and we'll be back at the same time on Monday. Until then, goodbye.